Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. We have another week's worth of meals and I am so excited to share these ones with you guys this week. The very first meal that we are making was a insanely delicious meal. We definitely, Stephen and I both agreed that this one needs to be on repeat because it was so quick to make. It is an Italian sausage tortellini soup. This is going to be my winter favorite go-to. You want to take approximately 1 pound of an Italian sausage. I'm pretty sure you can get away with using like a turkey one. It doesn't necessarily have to be pork. So what you want to do is just brown that up over a medium-high heat. Approximately, it says for 7 to 10 minutes. You just want it to be all browned all over. Then you're going to take that sausage out of the pan and you're going to set it on a paper towel lined plate. And then what you're going to do is just leave approximately 1 tablespoon of fat in that pot. If you have any excess fat, you would just drain it at this point. I actually ended up not having any excess fat, so I had to add in approximately a teaspoon of butter just to add some more moisture to there. Now this recipe does call to use some onion and some celery, 2 sticks of celery and half a medium onion finely chopped. I just ended up skipping that step and kind of just went to the next one, which is adding your garlic. So you want to add about 3 to 4 cloves of garlic, and then you're going to add 2 tablespoons of flour and just kind of whisk it in or mix it in to all of the wet ingredients that you have it in there. You want to remove the flour taste off of it, so you want it to kind of omit like a nutty smell. Once you get the flour ground up, what you're going to do is take 4 cups of chicken broth and whisk it into that flour mixture. I ended up actually using a couple extra cups in this. I had some in the fridge that needed to get used, so I was whisking it in. Once you get that all incorporated, you're going to come in and add 1 28-ounce can of diced tomatoes with their juices. I actually didn't add enough diced tomatoes. I only ended up adding a pint of it and I should have added a quart, but that's fine. It still tasted delicious. So there I am stirring in my granulated onion because we don't use the actual onions itself. We like the onion flavor, it's just a texture issue that I don't cook with it. Once you get that stirred in, you are going to then add a 1/4 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. I just like to rub my seasonings because when you have a dried seasoning mix, if you rub it, it releases the oil, which makes it a little bit more flavorful. So you're gonna get that stirred in and then you're gonna come back and add that sausage that you took out and you're gonna add everything back in here. Now my broth is unsalted, so I added a very generous amount of salt to this because I knew that my broth didn't have any salt in it. I did a little taste test, readjusted, and then also added some pepper. You want to increase the heat to high and bring the soup to a gentle boil. Once it is boiling, then you are going to add 2 cups of, it says here, a refrigerated cheese tortellini. I was actually just using a frozen tortellini, and again, it turned out fine. So then once you get that tortellini in, you are going to reduce the heat to gently simmer it and cook for 5 minutes. After the 5 minutes, you're going to come in and stir in 1 cup of a heavy whipping cream, and then you are going to let that cook for another 5 minutes. Now, because I went ahead and added that extra liquid in there, I needed to actually thicken this soup up a little bit because it was a tad bit too thick. So I just took some arrowroot and just stirred in some of that soup mix just to bring the arrowroot to temperature, and then I just whisk the arrowroot in. If you have it available, it does suggest to add in 2 cups of packed fresh baby spinach to this. Kale would also be excellent in this. I didn't have any available on this night, so I omitted that, but it would be really good in there. So I'm just scooping it up, and then we decided to top it with a little bit of Parmesan cheese, and this recipe was so delicious. It's gonna be perfect for the winter. The next meal, I'm going to make a bourbon chicken. So what I'm doing right now is just getting the sauce all made. This recipe is very weird in the sense that you don't actually marinate the chicken, you just bake the sauce and coat it and then you cook it. This is an air fryer recipe, but you definitely can use an oven for this. I will leave the recipe linked for you guys if you want to give it a try. So in this sauce pot, I am putting in a heaping teaspoon of grated garlic cloves. I'm just using my pre-minced stuff, and 1 heaping teaspoon of grated ginger, 3/4 teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes, 1/4 cup of apple juice, 1/3 cup of light brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of ketchup. You can use a sriracha in this as well, 1 tablespoon of cider vinegar, and 1/2 cup of water, and 1/3 cup of soy sauce. You want to bring this to a low boil. While this is boiling, what you are going to do is make a cornstarch slurry, and then you are going to whisk that in. So you're going to take 2 teaspoons of cornstarch or arrowroot, they're interchangeable, and then you're going to dilute it with 1 to 2 teaspoons of water, and then just whisk it until it's smooth. So then you're going to take that slurry, and then you're going to whisk that into this sauce, and you're going to allow it to thicken. So what you need to do, because we're adding the sauce to the chicken, you actually need to let that sauce cool for at least a minimum of 10 minutes before you put it on the chicken, because you don't want to cook the chicken with the sauce. While that sauce is cooling, we are going to cut our chicken into approximately 3-inch pieces. You're going to put it in a bowl or a Ziploc container. So once that sauce is cooled, you're going to take 1/3 of the cooled sauce and you're going to put it onto the chicken and just kind of coat the chicken. If I make this again, I am going to double the sauce recipe because it was not saucy enough for me. It just barely coated it and the chicken ended up to be a little bit dry. That's why I was saying it was kind of weird that you didn't marinate the chicken. Once you get the chicken all coated, you are going to take the remaining sauce and you are going to put it into 2 separate containers. This is what we do in order to avoid cross-contamination. So you're going to have one container that you're going to be basting the uncooked chicken with, and then you have the second container or the bowl of the sauce that you are going to baste the cooked chicken with. That way you don't get any cross-contamination on that. So you're going to take your chicken and you're going to thread it into your skewers. Because I am using my air fryer and wooden skewers, I actually soaked these wooden skewers for at least a couple of hours. That way I don't get them burning in the air fryer. So once you get it all skewered up, you're going to put it into your air fryer and you're going to cook it for about 15 minutes. You want the final result of the chicken to reach 165 degrees. After 4 minutes, so pretty much every 4 minutes, you're going to stop the air fryer and you're going to baste the chicken with that sauce using the sauce mix you reserved for the uncooked chicken. After it is done, you're going to take it out and then just do another final baste on it. The recipe did not give me the temperature for my air fryer, so I believe I had it put at 370 or 375. I can't remember what I had it set at. I had pre-made some white rice, so I just added that on the side, and then we also did some blistered shishitos with this because we still have a lot on the plant. And this meal was actually pretty good, but like I said, if I do it again, I'm definitely going to be making sure that I marinate this meat. Next meal, we are going to do a chickpea potato soup. I have really been craving soup lately because when we wake up, the mornings are nice and crisp and cool like a fall morning. So I want soup, so I put everything out for soup. But then by the afternoon, we are in like the mid to high 80s and I absolutely do not want to eat soup. But this night we had soup again, and this was actually a meatless one, so I was really excited to get to use my canned beans plus get to use some of these garden fresh veggies. These are some celery and carrots. These carrots I planted in spring and I completely forgot about them, and then I was pulling weeds and found these carrots. And then this celery is just celery that regrew from celery stalks that I'd already harvested. So I cut those up. If you want to use an onion, you definitely can use an onion in this. It calls for 1 medium red onion chopped. So you're going to saute your veggies until they are nice and cooked through. It suggests about 7 to 10 minutes. While the veggies were softening up, I cut up my potatoes. So it calls for 1 pound of potatoes peeled and cut into 1/2-inch dices. So I was just getting it all pre-prepped. Then you're going to use 2 cans, 14-ounce cans of chickpeas, and you want to make sure that they are drained and rinsed very well. Now, because this is a vegan recipe, it actually called to use a vegetable stock in it. I decided to sub it out and use a chicken stock. So I was just getting all of that stuff all prepped. You want to add some fresh herbs into this. So I added approximately 1 tablespoon of fresh thyme and then 1 tablespoon of fresh rosemary. And then you're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of red chili flakes. You're just going to get that all stirred together until everything kind of gets to be fragrant. And then you're going to add in your chickpeas, potatoes, and your chicken broth or veggie broth, whatever you're deciding to use. You're going to give it a stir, get everything incorporated, and you're going to bring this to a boil. Then you're going to lower the heat and cover this pot and let it simmer for about 15 minutes. This is an optional step I'm doing because I wanted a creamier soup. The recipe recommends to take out 2 to 3 ladles of soup and puree it in a blender. I was just using the immersion blender because it was super easy. I decided to take it off the heat so I didn't burn myself. So you're going to add in the juice of 1 lemon. I did not think that it was going to taste good. good. So I only did half of a lemon at first, and then I added in some kale. It calls for 2 cups of baby spinach. I didn't have spinach, but I did have kale on this night, so I stirred that in. Put some salt in, because again, my broth is not salted, so I wanted to make sure I had it good and salted. Some pepper, and then I did a taste test and realized that I did need to have the whole lemon. So I came in and squeezed in the other half of the lemon, just adding a little bit more salt. Again, broth, not salted. Whenever you're watching my recipes, if you see me adding a lot of salt when I'm using a broth, it is because my broths are not salted when I make them. So I always have to modify that when cooking. So that is it. You're gonna let that cook for just a couple more minutes, and then that is your meal. I was really excited to get this meatless meal in for the night. I really like to have at least one meatless meal a week. It really helps the food budget. I just sprinkled it with a little bit of Parmesan cheese, put some sourdough bread with it, and it was perfect dipping soup. Stephen said that this recipe would be really good in like a really cold winter day. Meal I am going to make is one of my childhood favorite desserts. We used to have this so much when we were kids. I think it was because apples were fairly cheap to get, and this was a really simple, easy to come together dessert. So we had it a lot. I don't have a linkable recipe for you guys because I'm just kind of doing this from memory or from heart because again, I grew up eating this. So what you want to do is you want to take a brownie pan. It's either an 8-inch or a 9-inch brownie pan, and you're just going to lightly butter all around the pan. You're going to peel your apples, and then you're going to core them and then slice them. Now I've made this a couple of different ways. This way right now I'm making it with slices. You can definitely like cube the apples and do it that way as well. It works perfect either way. And then what you want to do is after you get all of your apples sliced up, I like to add a little bit of lemon juice to it, and it just prevents the apples from browning. So I'm adding about a capful of this lemon juice and just getting it kind of all mixed and worked in. I also want to add, I am using a Cortland variety of apples. I don't think it necessarily matters what variety you use. I usually use Macintosh because that is my favorite kind of apple, but you could probably get away with using any type of apple in this. So you want to make your crumb topping next. So I'm adding 1 cup of unbleached flour, 1 cup of lightly packed light brown sugar, approximately a 1/4 cup of just old-fashioned oats, and 1 stick or half a cup of butter. You want to have it a nice crumbly texture, so you're going to use your pastry blender and just kind of work that butter into the flour sugar mixture. You want to have little clumps of that butter so it can kind of melt on top. What I decided to do is just take a little bit more of that brown sugar and just kind of work it into the apples a little bit just to kind of sweeten the base layer. Once you get that done, you're going to put your crumb topping on top, and I actually doubled my crumb topping. I love to have more topping than apples, so you can actually half this, and that would be probably what I would say a normal recipe. I like to come in and sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon, allspice, and nutmeg on the top of it. If you didn't want to put it on top, you could definitely incorporate it in that flour, sugar, butter mixture. That way you wouldn't have to worry about it burning on top, because that definitely happens to me sometimes. So I'm going to put it into a 350-degree oven, and we are going to cook this for approximately 45 minutes. It definitely depends on how big your pan is. Like I said, I think I'm using a 9 or 8-inch pan, so it took about 45 minutes to cook, but it comes out so beautifully. The house smells like fall. This is definitely good by itself, but I had actually made this earlier on in the day, so it was a little bit colder. So we ended up just heating it up, and then I put a scoop of ice cream on it and drizzled a little bit of caramel sauce on it, and it definitely felt like it was fall when I was having this dessert. For the last meal, I am making something I had in my mind. I was craving a taco, but I was also craving a beef fajita, so I tried to combine them both together. So what I did is I took a pound of ground beef, and I'm just getting it browned up, and then I am taking a couple of my garden fresh peppers. For some reason, now that we are in the end of September, and it happens every single year, my pepper plants have just exploded full of peppers. So I'm trying to incorporate them into a lot of meals lately. So I'm just thinly slicing them. That that is a jalapeno pepper that I'm slicing up in there. I did take the seeds out to kind of take the heat out a little bit. It wasn't spicy at all with that jalapeno in there. Now that my ground beef is all cooked, I am going to add a couple of teaspoons of my homemade taco seasoning to this ground beef, and I'm just gonna get it incorporated. I can actually leave that video linked for you guys in the video description showing you how I make that taco seasoning. It's super, super easy to make, and it doesn't have any unnecessary additives in it. So I'm just lightly coating that ground beef with that taco seasoning, and then I'm gonna remove it and just set it aside. I'm gonna put some butter and oil into my cast iron skillet and just try to get up some of that taco seasoning off the bottom. And then we're gonna add our peppers and our jalapeno pepper. And then what we're gonna do is just saute it until the peppers are nice and soft. Once those peppers get soft, we're gonna add that ground beef back in. And I'm just adding a couple, I would say maybe I added about 1/4 to 1/2 cup of water to it, just because my taco seasoning does have a thickener in it. Like, I believe it has arrowroot in it. So it gets nice and thick when I add that water in. So what we kind of did was just assemble pretty much like a burrito, fajita, taco. It was like a combination. I had some leftover rice that from the other night when we had that bourbon chicken. So I just put that into the taco, and then I topped that with the beef mixture, and then I had some pickled red onions that I added to mine, and some fresh tomato and sour cream, and it was really, really delicious. It kind of hit the spot of what I was craving. So this is the last meal for the video. I hope I gave you guys a little bit of meal inspiration for the upcoming week. That is kind of my goal with doing these videos. I personally love watching what people are cooking, so I hope you guys enjoy them. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great day or night whenever you are watching this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye guys.